Hi everyone, I hope I'm audible and visible to all of you. Give me a quick yes if you can see and hear me. Oh, thanks so much. Have a nice, interesting comment. Awesome. So, welcome back to today's episode of Let's Talk Tokenization. And today we're going to talk about a very different kind of tokenization, and that's of future profits. So, the reason I've been thinking about this particular use case is that there are so many startups who are doing well, or not necessarily startup. I mean, they could be older companies also. They're doing well, but they don't want to take on debt, but they still need to raise money, and they don't even want to give up equity ownership. So, what are the kind of options that are available to them? And that's where I believe that if we are to tokenize their future profits, it's a very strong use case. The chances of something going wrong are very, very few. Let me explain how it would work. So we could take any startup. It could be a manufacturer, it could be a retailer, it could be a software as a service company, it could be a crypto company, it could be anything. Now, what they do is they show you their last 3 years' accounts. So, all the audited balance sheets and everything else. And there you can see that what their profits have been over the last 3 years, and we can average that out. Now that we have their average profits, so let's say their average profits is $100. What they can now say is in the next financial year, we are expecting to make $120. You can buy that profit today at a discount. So if you want to buy out $120 worth of profit, you could say get it for 80 or $90. Now, as the company does business, the money is going into their bank account every time they're earning revenue. All the investors have access to that bank account. So in real time, you can see how the revenue is coming. And a small portion of that money keeps coming to you on a daily or weekly basis based upon the pre-decided formula. So suppose we say that on revenue, they make 1% profit. So every $100 of profit or revenue that goes into the bank account, $1 keeps coming into you. And if this company can integrate crypto for accepting payments, then we can have a smart contract that can instantly even put the money into your account on a real time basis. Of course, this would require the company to be okay to accept money in stable coins like US dollar or pound or euro backed cryptocurrencies, stable coins. And if the company is open to accepting that, this can completely happen on a blockchain in real time basis. If they are not open to that, then you can keep accessing their bank statements and you can keep getting this money, say on a weekly, 2 weekly, monthly basis, whatever makes sense to everyone. Now, obviously, there is a risk that what if the company doesn't pay you on time or as per what has been promised? Now, that risk is always there in the world. Even when you invest in a big company, they could go broke. Classic example being, for example, Nokia or Kodak, BlackBerry, so many companies. So that's always a risk in business. But if a particular company defaults, then they kind of get blacklisted forever, and nobody's ever really going to trust them again. So, presuming the company is reasonably trusted and the business makes sense where you can see all their past accounts and you feel that it's a good, solid, profitable business, does this kind of a concept make sense to you? I'd like to hear your point of view. Do you think you would want to invest in the future profits of any company? Could be manufacturer, could be retailer, could be a SaaS company, could be a crypto company, anything like that. I'd love to hear your opinion on that. So why don't you guys give me a yes, no? And also if you have questions, about what you think is good about this idea, what's bad, let's kind of brainstorm this out. So it's not been done before, but I think it makes a lot of sense. So I did speak to a few of my friends who run different kinds of startups. Now, some of them felt they wouldn't want to go for this because they didn't need that money. So they felt that they had a lot of good cash flow coming in. So for some of them, it didn't make sense because they didn't need the money. But for the others who did have the money, it made a lot of sense to them. Some of them were from the retail sector, where obviously the profit percentage is much lower. Some are from SaaS, where the percentages were much higher in terms of how much of you actually making in net profits. And of course, some of them are from the Web3 and crypto space also. For them, of course, it becomes a very easy thing to do because almost everything they're doing is already on a public blockchain, so everybody can see it. So it's very easy to have a smart contract which can do this for us. Now, another thing that I want you to bear in mind here is when we talk about these future profits, they need not be restricted to companies only. What about a movie? So there are already platforms which are coming in to give you ownership of partial ownership of a movie. So you're actually funding a movie. Now, that's another thing. A movie could tokenize its future profits also. Or let's say there's an author and the author is going to write a book. Now, the book is going to generate profits over the next 60 years because copyright licenses can go up to 60 years. Movies, software, books, all of these have their own copyrights. So it's possible for an author to also tokenize these profits over the next several years. So you can have a different discount rate for next year's profit, a different discount rate for next to next year, and maybe even the next 10 years could be tokenized on day one itself. So I think Ritik is also here. Ritik, I think you also have a movie tokenization platform, if I'm not mistaken. There are a couple of other platforms for movies in India which have gone live over the last few days. I offhand don't remember the name, but I was just looking at one of them. Some Another platform which has gone live is tokenizing shipping assets. Again, I followed that project, but I've forgotten the name. So even that's an interesting thing where a ship's future profits, a private jet's future profits. Now, there's one very important benefit when it comes to this. Because you are not actually tokenizing the asset, most of the legal complications will not be there. See, when we talk about, say, tokenizing agricultural land, so we know there are lots of problems with that because there are laws which regulate who can and cannot buy that land. However, if you are tokenizing the profits from that agricultural land, then it becomes legally much simpler to do. Same is the case with real estate. Same is the case with, like I said, shipping, movies, you name it. Ship Phoenix. Yeah, I think it is Ship Phoenix. So thanks for reminding me about that name. So how do you guys feel about this idea? Then you look at something like patents. Now those have a lifespan of about 20 years, but you could even tokenize the patents or the profits from the patent. So why I think this kind of makes more sense to me is the legal issues become much simpler. I'm not tokenizing an asset, I'm tokenizing the revenue generated by that asset or the profit generated by that asset. So my legal cost would be like virtually zero, and the kind of returns I can get are actually pretty high. So, what do you guys think? Just making a few notes. Also, if you have ideas, keep letting me know. Do you guys have any kind of business ideas that you are already working on? So, in future sessions, I'd also like to invite some of you guys to be part of the show. And, we could talk about whatever you're doing in tokenization only. So, because I strongly believe that's the best blockchain use case, tokenization of real world assets. And I'm happy to see many people are coming out with different kinds of ideas around it. So, like I mentioned to you, I'm seeing the movie industry use cases going live, shipping industry, I've seen. We're doing whiskey, and I know there are lots of people doing real estate also. Definitely, that's something which is doing well. Any questions, any comments, any ideas? Please put them in the chat box. And of course, this is something that I believe we could go live with very easily. So I'm going to open to it. If you have ideas, just put them out there. Get in touch with me, and we could list your project pretty soon. Ideally speaking, I'd like to see projects which or the assets have been generating revenue for at least 3 years, so that as an investor, you're more comfortable with it, right? Because you're seeing that this particular asset has been functioning for at least 3 years, and then we have some kind of data available that over the last 3 years, what's the kind of money it's been making. Then it kind of becomes easier for us to extrapolate that, and especially we also get to see the COVID time statistics, like how did this particular asset perform during that period. Now if it did well during that period also, that's further giving us confidence. That's another benefit that could come into that situation. Another very good thing of this would be that we are not really buying into the securities of the company. We're not asking every company to actually issue securities. So legally also our costs and compliance, timing and everything becomes a lot easier. uh, Okay, I can see a question here, but it's a little different. I'm learning Solidity so as to get better hold of Web3 and investment. Can you suggest what path should I do? Okay, that's an interesting question, but I wouldn't recommend you to learn Solidity, because what you've got to realize is that what's your objective. So, for example, if you're thinking of only investing into Web3 companies, or you're investing into startups or tokenization projects, what's important for you to understand is the business model, not really the tech. See, today for tech, for example, even if you want to build your own smart contracts, you could simply use so many of these platforms. Like there are these wizards, like Open Zeppelin has a wizard where you just click a few buttons, and you have the entire smart contract ready, which can be deployed onto any platform in the live mode. You can also look at the APIs provided by so many companies. So I believe Web3 and tokenization, the tech is becoming less of a crucial factor. It is ultimately the business sense that is important. Does the project make sense? Like, I will ask you a question. Does it make sense for us to use Web3 to buy and sell gold or shares? And I would say no, it makes no sense, because there is already the commodities market, which is doing very well, very fast, very secure. They're doing gold and agriculture and so many other commodities. What about things like stock market? No, there are already stock markets all over the world. What value is Web3 or blockchain going? However, when we go into alternative investments like copyright licenses of movies or future profits, nobody does that. And these are niche markets. They're not those multi-billion or trillion-dollar kind of markets which are already there. These are new opportunities. So I would strongly advise look into those kind of assets. And no, I wouldn't really recommend learning Solidity, or for that matter, any kind of programming language. That's okay if you actually want to work in the field as a Solidity developer. I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions you guys have? I know there is a lag between me speaking and then it reaching on certain platforms, especially LinkedIn, there's a 60-second lag. So I'll kind of wait a little bit longer. Can we start manufacturing business? How Web3 would help? So, manufacturing definitely is a very good idea. But what we've got to understand, Web3 has a limited role to play here. So, one is we could use Web3 to raise our funding. Secondly, we could use Web3 to have some kinds of tokens issued for loyalty programs for our customers. If we are in something like a valuable product where fakes are possible, we could use blockchain and Web3 for making sure that the product that is being bought by people is not fake. So, your loyalty points, your authentication, your provenance could come into the picture. You could tokenize your future projects on that. Other than that, manufacturing is obviously a physical business. So, somewhere in the world, you're obviously going to have machinery. You're going to have employees working on that machinery to create products. Then you are going to be selling those products. So Web3 can definitely help in a lot of those places, but obviously it cannot completely take over your process. But it can definitely help you in a lot of ways. Any other questions? I can see I've answered most of the questions. Yeah, I'm also doing a tokenization and Web3 quiz very soon. I'll be putting that information out in a day or two, so do participate in that. So, our quizzes are always the live kind of quizzes, and the prizes, everything is in real time. Okay, I have an interesting question here. You said that there wouldn't be any legal costs in this. No, well, I don't mean there would be zero legal costs, but the legal costs would be much lesser where tokens are not legalized. Okay. Now, there is no country in the world where tokens are illegal. Now, this is a very interesting question that you asked. So, let me kind of go a little bit more into detail about how that would go. Let me just finish reading your question. Okay. Now, there is a distinction, a very clear distinction between cryptocurrencies and blockchain tokens. Cryptocurrencies are a type of blockchain token. Many countries in the world have banned them. However, when we talk about blockchain tokens, blockchain is only a technology, and there is not a single government in the world that has said any technology like this is illegal. Now, it depends on how that is actually legally structured and how the business is flowing. So, let's take an example in India. There is a concept called a virtual digital asset, and by default, all cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin come under that. And automatically, there's a 30% income tax on it and a 1% TDS every time you transact. However, the government has said very specifically that if this kind of a blockchain token is backed by a real life asset, and the transfer of the token results in the legal transfer of the asset, then it is not covered by VDA. So it doesn't even come under that advanced 30% taxation or 1% TDS. So I can tell you that in almost every developed country in the world, blockchain tokens are not penalized. No one has said anything negative about them. So we have to structure the deal very well. It has to be made very clear that this token is not like a Bitcoin kind of a cryptocurrency which is not backed by some real world asset. It is actually representing the discounted version of profits of a company. That's what we are tokenizing. Now, is it possible that it may come under securities laws? Depends on the country. So again, there we have to look country wise. May not come under the securities laws of India, which is the Securities Contract Regulation Act. May come under the securities laws of the US because that is, by the SEC. So we have to study that part. But the legal costs will be comparatively much lower because we don't have to go into the assets. Let's take an example again. Let's say that there's a company manufacturing this pen. Now we can see over the last 3 years, they have made a profit of, let's just say, $1 million a year. We are tokenizing that profit. The documents are clear. They are making that much average on a year, so chances are they will make it next year. I'm buying that at a discount. However, if we wanted to tokenize the factory, there are so many headaches that come in. We need to check all the assets. Have they already taken loans against the asset? Like, I mean to say, they've made a machinery, they've got land. Have they paid taxes on it? Are they paying interest on it? Does have a right over that? So that's a big nightmare. Legal due diligence has to be done. But if we bypass all that and we say we are simply entering into a contract to buy your future profit, 99.9% of our legal due diligence is sorted out. So it becomes a lot easier. I hope that part is clear to all of you. Uh, how about the hi-fi token being listed and platform? Okay, so for hi-fi I'm going to be doing a session on Wednesday. That's the coming Wednesday. It's called how to make money with hi-fi. So we are opening up a lot of our managerial positions where you can manage an asset for us. We are opening up the advisor positions where when you refer in people who do trading on the platform, every time they do a transaction you get a percentage of the transaction fee. We are also opening up people who want to run test network for the nodes, as well as the main network for the nodes. For all of that, also you can get money. So that's something I'm going to be covering in detail along with Shinam next week. So I'll answer that question during that time. I hope that's okay. Today, let's just focus on the tokenization of future profits. Are there any other questions that you guys have in mind? Or do you have some kind of companies that you're thinking about, like what kind of business you're running and whether it would make sense for it to do that? If not, I'm going to randomly pick up some business ideas. So, Keshav, I think you're here. So, Keshav comes from a background of running plywood manufacturing business. So, Keshav, what do you think about this whole thing? Where you're not really tokenizing your assets or your land, you're tokenizing the future profits of your factory. And that does not create any lien or charge on your assets. It's not a debt, so you don't pay interest. It's not even equity, so you're not even giving up ownership. Now, obviously, some businesses may be saying that, you know what, because of taxation and other issues, we usually show a lower profit. Yeah, there are some businesses which do that. Well, unfortunately for them, if they want to benefit from tokenization of profits, they're going to have to show all those figures. But then that's for certain businesses only. So, does this make sense? Keshav, what do you think about it? Or if there are other people who are already running businesses, what do you guys think about it? Anything else you'd like to add here? So Keshav is thinking about it. That's nice. So Keshav, why don't you talk to other manufacturers in your line, and maybe even people who are supplying raw materials to your industry, even they could think in that direction. One thing, obviously, we've all got to have is that I would say we should always look at a minimum 3 years of past records because doing it for a brand new company brings a lot of new risks. We don't know how soon they will actually start generating profits. And since we are tokenizing profits and not sales, so definitely that is something we need to be careful about. So I would say 3 years is a good time period in which during which the company would have taken care of initial issues and kind of started to generate profits. Longer than 3 years, even better, and it could benefit any kind of a brand. So like nowadays we have a lot of very new coffee brands coming in, or we have new gyms coming in, health clubs coming in, nightclubs coming in. I mean, you name it, and all of them could benefit. Uh, okay, Keshav is also has got positive feelings on that. Another thing, when I look at it, when we invest in a company to set up the company, the cost can be huge. It may take millions of dollars to set up a factory. But when we are tokenizing profits, the amounts are smaller. So, we can spread our investment around in multiple companies. In smaller amounts, we can get a share in the profits of so many other companies. So I'll wait for another minute or so. If there are other questions, do put them in. And our WhatsApp group for tokenization is full. So I've created a second group. Let me just put the URL also here. Give me a second. So unfortunately, there's a WhatsApp has a limit of I think 1,024 members in a group. So I put in the link for the second group. It's called Tokenization and DeFi Group 2. So the benefits of that is we run a lot of quizzes there, and plus every time we do a session, that's put up there, the videos and the registration link and all. So you can join up the WhatsApp group. Any other ideas? Okay, I think I don't have any more questions. So great, it was nice speaking to all of you. I'll see you next Wednesday also, where we're going to talk about how you guys can make money from the Hi-Fi blockchain project. And then, of course, I'll be back on Friday, 3 p.m. for our tokenization talks. So I don't see any other questions. I'll still wait for a minute or so. Okay, so it was nice speaking to all of you. See you next week. Bye bye.